Have you ever walked into a courtroom and felt talked over, rushed, or subtly intimidated by opposing counsel or even the bench? You're not imagining it. Sometimes one of the hardest parts of being a woman in a courtroom isn't the law, it's the pressure. It's the pressure of having to prove yourself more than your male counterparts. It's the pressure of summoning everything in you to stand at counsel's table, not roll your eyes, while opposing counsel postures, undermines, and interrupts. The other hard part is lying awake at night, wondering if you missed something, or worse, wondering if you have what it takes to win. How many hours have you wasted trying to build your witness outline, sort through exhibits, or figure out the mechanics instead of preparing the argument that will actually win the case? Every attorney has blind spots. It's not because you're inexperienced, and it's not because you're a woman. It's because you're too close to your own case. And let's be real, missing something comes with cost. Blind spots cost money, blind spots cost strategy, and blind spots can cost outcomes. What if you could rise above that? What if you could see your case from 50 feet up with total clarity, no blind spots, and a framework driven strategic method that helps you win more cases with less stress? Let me show you what this looks like in real life. Ryan was a solo attorney who came to me in one of my live booth camps early in her career. She was capable, she was smart, and like many newer lawyers, she still felt that she needed training for the courtroom. After completing the boot camp, she immediately started seeing results. She tightened her objections, got opposing counsel's evidence excluded during a hearing, and started seeing small wins. But when a major trial came up, she said something I hear all the time. She said, Tanya, I know my case, but I just don't feel ready to do this alone. We put Ryan's case through the Eagle Eye program using the Ascend framework. I served as co counsel, and together we tried and won a family law case, which is an area that I had never practiced in before that trial. But that win wasn't about experience in a practice area. It was about clarity, structure, and strategy. That's what changes everything. But you don't have to take my word for it. Let's talk to Samantha.
Hi, my name is Samantha Vacciana, and I'm the owner and CEO of Trial Lawyers of Florida. I first met Tanya Williams when she was presenting at a continuing legal education, a CLE, on how to introduce evidence and different things that you need to do in a trial. She was so compelling and commanding of that CLE that I really, at the end, I went up to her and talked to her about possibly working with me on a case. And she came in and she really took an eagle eye approach to my case. We sat down, we went through every piece of the evidence, every pleading that had been filed in that case, and we reviewed it. And prior to her coming on board, I'll be honest, I'm a seasoned trial lawyer. I've been doing trial work for more than 2 decades. And yet this case had me anxious and had me up at night worrying about, what was going on here and did I miss this piece and so on and so on. And Tanya came in. First of all, she has a very calming effect, right? And we sat down and we just pulled the case apart and we started going through it piece by piece. And she really started to, in law school, they say you have to be careful not to get so caught up by the trees that you can't see the forest or you can't see the forest for the trees. And Tanya is like a tree clearer, a brush clearer. She clears everything away so that you can see the forest and that you can see the big picture and that you can make a decision which way you want to go with this case. And ultimately, I had been thinking about withdrawing from the case for some time, but I couldn't really put my finger on what is it that was causing me all this anxiety and all this stress and just not being able to kind of figure out what was going on. And she identified some key pieces of evidence that the client just hadn't provided, wouldn't provide, or couldn't provide for me to be able to prove up my case. Once we determined that he was not able to provide me with what I need to be successful or to put on a very good case, then I was able to say, it's time for us to terminate this relationship. And we did. And dealing with Tanya and taking the eagle eye approach to everything and every piece of evidence, it allowed me to take my emotional side out of it and to then go back into lawyer mode. And once she got me into lawyer mode, it was like she cleared away all of the trees. I could see the forest, and now I could see the big picture and realized that my emotions were tied into this case, and it was time to let it go. And that's exactly what we did. And funny enough, I never told her this, but the day after I withdrew from that case, I was approached with someone who had a case that was very similar. And when I saw the pieces, I was like, okay, no, I'm not taking this. So Tanya says she's just an amazing person, full of energy, very inspirational, very calming, but at the same time, just extremely knowledgeable. I would work with Tanya again and plan to work with her again. And I just think that her approach, the eagle eye approach, is really important, especially when you are a solo practitioner or maybe you don't have a lot of support in your law firm. She is the individual for you.
Now, imagine walking into court with the clarity, precision, and stillness of an eagle. You see the entire field. You know what matters and what doesn't. Your objections land, your arguments flow, your presentation is tight, intentional, and elevated. Nothing surprises you because you've already done the elevated analysis. Your client sees you operating at a level most solos only dream about. That feeling, that feeling is priceless. That is exactly why I created the Eagle Eye Advantage program. This is a premium one-on-one strategic experience where I elevate your case to a 50-foot view, catching patterns, spotting weaknesses, and identifying opportunities you simply cannot see from ground level. Where you see facts, I see patterns. Where you see documents, I see strategy. Where you see tasks, I see the entire architecture of the case. Using my Ascend framework, a simple yet powerful method that works for every case in every jurisdiction, I help you cut through the noise and see the strategic truth of your case with total clarity. Because you don't need more hours. You need clearer vision. So what do you get? Inside the Eagle Eye Advantage, you get a top-down strategic assessment of your case, a refined theme and theory that aligns with the big picture, an optimized witness sequence based on strategy, not habit, a surgical exhibit review, identifying pressure points, a precision crafted objections plan so you can be on the offense and the defense, visual presentation options that support your theory instead of cluttering it. This is not templates. This is not theory. This is case specific, attorney specific, courtroom ready strategy. As a solo or a small firm attorney, you don't have the luxury of a 5-person trial team. You're the lawyer, the strategist, the investigator, the paralegal, the IT department, the researcher, and sometimes the entire litigation support team, all by yourself. When you're buried under motions, deadlines, discovery, witness and exhibit lists, something happens. You lose the big picture. You lose the structure. You lose the strategic pathways. You stop seeing holes, inconsistencies, and opportunities. Not because you're not brilliant, simply because you're human. And that loss of perspective, that's where cases fall apart. That's where money is lost. That's where good lawyers underperform. Not from lack of skill, but lack of vantage point. I'm Tanya.
Hello, my name is Brianna Jackson, and I am the office manager and paralegal for Trial Lawyers of Florida under the leadership of attorney Samantha Vacciana. At Trial Lawyers of Florida, we are deeply committed to excellence. What that means is that anything that we put our name on, we always dot our I's, cross our T's, and cross our T's again. We want clients to feel absolutely confident in the decisions that we're making on their behalf. But that level of commitment does carry a huge weight. And that's where attorney Tanya Williams came in. Eagle Eye is a program like no other. When we would get started, attorney Williams would ask for a copy of the case file, and it was very clear during the meetings that she had reviewed the entire file before we had gotten started with the meeting. I appreciated that because it saved a lot of time, so we didn't have to catch her up. She was already present and ready to begin. During the sessions, she would ask very insightful questions that sometimes we'd never even considered before. That made a difference in how we determined what next steps should be. By the end of the session, we had next steps, we knew when to effectuate them and how to effectuate them. It made Samantha much more confident and returned her back into that normal bubbly personality that she had and less stressed. For the entire office, we obviously felt the impacts of that. I do appreciate the time spent during the sessions with attorney Tanya Williams because it also, as a paralegal, just made me feel more confident in the things that I'm preparing and the next steps that we are putting in place. I also knew how better to support Samantha throughout the case. If a paralegal were to ask me whether or not I would refer attorney Tanya Williams to their attorney, I would absolutely say yes with no hesitation. Everybody deserves an eagle eye approach.
I'm Tanya Williams. I am the Chief Trial Strategist and founder of the Skilled Advocate Company. For over 23 years, I've tried cases, coached hundreds of lawyers, and taught advocacy across the country. Here's what I've learned. Lawyers don't lose because they're not grinding hard enough. They lose because they can't see the whole board. Winning is not about working harder. It's about preparing smarter. If you have a trial or hearing coming up and you know your case deserves more than hope, more than guesswork, and more than last-minute scrambling, then I invite you to step into the Eagle Eye Advantage program. You already know what staying in the weeds costs you. It costs you time, energy, strategy, and outcomes. There are two paths from here. Blue pill, red pill. Blue pill, keep preparing the way you always have and get the results you've always gotten. Red pill, elevate your perspective, sharpen your strategy, and walk into court with total clarity. You cannot win from the weeds. Let me say that again. You cannot win from the weeds. Eagles rise. Eagles see. Eagles execute. Let me give you that elevation. Let me give you that clarity. Let me give you the vantage point that changes everything. Let's elevate your case together.